what this undue burden is all about. And I also like your provisions and your suggestions on the chair of the IEBC. Fine, it's normal when you are in such a setup, it's good to lobby towards your part, because you said it must not be a lawyer only. Fine, we open it up. But in your presentations, it's clear that it's about maths. This is ICPAC, isn't it? And it's like, the lobbying is very, very clear that the chair could probably come from the accountant section. Is that what I'm trying to understand it like? Thank you.
Perhaps if we could agree, since you can see the pressure we are facing, and since some of these questions are related, you could just perhaps consolidate the answers in less than 5 minutes, please, kindly. And you could do further written submissions to buttress the points you already canvassed so far. 5 minutes or under, please. Thank you. Honorable MPs, Honorable Wajumbe, we recognize your presence, please. Kindly give us just 5 minutes to conclude this. You could do, if you don't mind, stand behind so that we don't intimidate the members who are of ISPAC who are presenting.
Thank you, co-chairs. In the interest of time, 3 members will undertake all these questions. The first question by Honorable Wamalwa, that is on taxation.
Just proceed. Don't even start.
That is on taxation and cost of living. That will be addressed by FCPA Hesbon. FCPA Hesbon will also address the question from Honorable Mianzi on debt status in the nation.
I wish you could just allow them to proceed without highlighting who is doing what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, John Chairs. I think on the issue of cost of living, allow me to state this way, that the problem begins from the budgeting phase. If you budget to spend 3.5 trillion against a tax collection of 2 trillion, it follows that you must borrow the difference to finance the budget. So our proposal, and this we've shared with the National Treasury before, we should not just look at the income side of the budget, but also look at the expenditure side of the budget and glean through it so that we do real zero-based budget, so that we don't just regurgitate what was there the previous year. That way we eliminate certain wastages within the system. The second issue around this is corruption, and I'm glad one of your members has mentioned. If you buy power today through independent power producers, you're probably doing 100 shillings plus, while KenGen, which is a public utility, will generate power for you at 8 shillings or thereabout. The rest is subsidized. So we have to crack the whip, because all this goes towards the cost of living, all this goes towards the challenges that the mwananchi is facing. The other issue is about taxation. As it is now, 16% of our GDP is our tax collection. The average that is recommended for an economy like ours and within the OECD countries is up to 25%. So technically there is room for more tax collection, but how that burden is spread is the challenge that then we need to address in terms of ensuring equity and fairness as far as matters taxes is concerned, and therefore that would solve the question we are dealing with. The final comment I want to make is on the issue of subsidy, either for consumption or production. Subsidy for production is better any day, but ultimately there are certain underlying issues that we must also confront, and that's the big issue around corruption. If we're able to eliminate corruption around the subsidy on production, the benefit then translates to mwananchi. But when things are so bad like they are now,
the bipartisan talks underway at the Bomas.
Karibuni sana. Is it ISPAC? Great.
Yes, when you see
I know some of you differently, Mondegu. Karibuni sana.
Honorable CPA Mandego. FCPA. Karibu. Karibu, you may take the mic. Sorry, we kept you waiting for a little bit. LSK did take a lot of time, but ELOG has been very quick. In less about 20 minutes, we will plead with you to be being professionals. You equally be quick, and you begin with introductions. We'll give you a maximum of 20 minutes. You can see right behind you, CMD are waiting there, and there is another caucus of parliamentarians who are waiting, and CAPSA. Press the button on the right to speak there.
Thank you, honorable chairs, co-chairs, and honorable members.
To save time, you could introduce your colleagues.
All right. From my far left, we have CPA Ernest Murillo. He serves in the Legislative Affairs Committee of the Institute. On my immediate left is Honorable Mandenko, I think well known to you all. He serves in Public Policy and Research Committee. On my far right, we have Evans Juma. He serves in the Management Secretariat as a Manager Public Policy. Next to him is Elias, an economist serving as a manager, the same departments. Next to him is Hilary Onami, Director, Public Policy and Research. Immediate right is FCPA Hesbon Omolo, my fellow council member at ISPAC, and my name is FCPA Georgina Malombe. I am the team leader of this delegation. So, honorable members,
and just for ease of, so you know who is around, that is Honorable Mina Mnyazi, member of the committee, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, member of the committee, Honorable Catherine Wabilianga, member of the committee, and the co-chairs are here. I'm Kalonzo and this Ichungwa. I'm not quite sure there's Chungwa or Ichungwa, but that's okay.
Ishongwa.
You'll forgive us if we don't pronounce it as well as you could because of where we come from. So, honorable.
Proceed, please, Ms. Malombe.
Thank you. And our appearance before you is in response to your invitation on the key thematic areas that you did request us to respond to, and we are here to respond to those matters, and our submissions are divided into those specific thematic areas. To begin our submissions, thematic area number 1 is electoral justice and related matters.
No. We're just conspiring. Don't worry. Ignore us. Ignore the co-chairs.
All right. You know, we want to capture the attention of the co-chairs plus the members.
Sure.
So the very first submission to you is on restructuring and reconstitution of IEBC. And as an provision ring fences that position to legal professionals alone, we have to come to terms that this is a leadership role and a management role. And therefore, when we put it as a judicial role, chairman, we feel there is some sort of discriminatory to other professionals. We are submitting to you that we open up this, the chairmanship to other professionals, but we also reconsider the aspects of the experience of the office holder. And in that case, we are opening it up. We are proposing we open it up to other professionals. And in our submission, we have to appreciate that election is about numbers. And therefore, we want your honorable office, this committee, to consider qualifications of the chairpersons of the commission to be a person who holds the relevant degree. We have given our submissions there. As proven experience of over 15 years, we do agree, all of us, that for 15 years we have sufficient experience to be able to lead key institutions in this country. And lastly, it meets the constitutional requirements of leadership and integrity. Honorable Chairs, Article 86B of the Constitution provides that the votes cast should be counted, tabulated, and the results announced promptly by the presiding officer at each polling station. And therefore, we all have to admit that this speaks to numbers. And therefore, we are proposing that this commission considers at least one of the commissioners to have the relevant experience in finance, audit, accounting, risk management, amongst other professionals. And therefore, we have to come to terms and appreciate that ISPAC has over 35,000 members, and these over 35 members are at your service. And that is why we are proposing amendment to the first schedule of the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission Act, paragraph 3, subsection 4, to add the words, one of whom shall be a member of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, after the words person for appointment as members. Chairs, I believe had we had such a member in the last election, there were issues about particular ratios that would have been sorted promptly and on time. We are also submitting that that commission as it is, its term comes to an end at a particular time. And therefore, there is lack of succession planning in that commission. And therefore, our submission is that we have staggered appointments. Of course, phase transition requires some transitional provisions. And in these transitional provisions, we are saying we need to relook at the terms of the commissioners, where we talk of a term of 3 years, only renewable for another term of 3 years. Now, this will allow that staggering. How do we get to that point? We are getting to that point by ensuring the commissioners who hold office in the transitional provisions, they will have to cast a ballot for them to be able to know who retires first, who retires later. And therefore, with the recruitment happening at least 6 months before the end of their term, there would be some seamless transitions, and the appointment of the chair and 3 other commissions at any particular point in time ensures there is consistency, there is institutional memory, and retained number of commissioners at every particular time. And therefore, our provision is to amend the first schedule of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act by deleting paragraph 4, subsection 1E, that says that the president shall, within 7 days of receipt of the names approved by the National Assembly by notice in the Gazette, appoint the chairperson and members of the commission and replace it thereof with the president shall, within 7 days of receipt of the names approved by the National Assembly by notice in the Gazette, appoint the chairperson and the 3 members of the commission. This will ensure that institutional memory is protected and seamless transition and continuity and stability in the management of the commission happens. We are also proposing that these appointments should be done competitively. The shortlisting and interviews be done by a private independent firm. And this is purely to bring in the aspect of objectivity and independence. And therefore, we propose to amend the first schedule of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act to remove the selection committee and replace with private independent firm with experience in executive recruitment. And the justification is purely that this will help IEBC to be independent, impartial, accountable, which is essential for free and fair election. Chairman, I want to call my colleague, Honorable Mandengu, to pick the next point.
Our co-chairs, I will deal with the issues touching on boundaries delimitation. And our submission from the Institute is that Article 89 of the Constitution laid clear provisions on the elimination of electoral units at intervals of not less than 8 years and not more than 12 years, and completed at least 12 months before a general election of members of parliament. In so doing, we are cognizant of the fact that there were 27 constituencies which were saved by the Constitution, and they were given a time limit of about 10 years to be able to comply and reach the required set of population. Most of them have not attained that, and it is our proposal that they should be left to continue till they either improve their birth rates and bring up the population, which we have no control over, but doing away with them as per the provision of the Constitution will be unfair to those counties and to those constituencies. There's also a need to establish a clear and transparent process for boundary delimitation. IEBC should be facilitated and allowed to undertake this exercise well in time to allow for smooth preparations of the 2027 elections on the basis of new electoral units. Co-chairs, you will understand under the constitutional mandate, IEBC is required to undertake this exercise well in advance, and at times it can be contentious. There are moments when boundaries are changed, the electoral boundaries are changed, people are not happy with them, they need time to appeal, and if you are not careful, people may decide to boycott elections on certain areas. It is our position that this exercise should be undertaken early enough to be able to give people time to settle before they go for elections. Finally, on that particular point, IEBC should be guided by strict adherence of the provisions of Article 89 of the Constitution and ensure that no region gets more seats in Parliament than others. Again, that's another problem. They need to undertake that exercise, and it needs time. And as we are already 1 year down the line after elections, it is time IEBC was properly constituted to start this exercise early enough and ensure that there is equity when it comes to the distribution of electoral constituencies, so that no area in the country will feel they are marginalized and others have been favored. Transparency, the justification for this co-chairs is that transparent boundary delimitation ensures equitable representation and reduces gerrymandering, promoting a more representative democracy. While it is said no taxation without representation, taxation without representation is tyranny. This should be done in moderation and consideration of the cost of representation without further burdening an already burdened mwananchi. Co-chairs, allow me to go to the audit of the 2022 presidential elections. Pre, during, and post-election audit of systems, finances, process, and outcomes should be conducted not only for the 2022 elections, but also for future presidential elections. The justification for this is that the different audits should be geared towards addressing concerns about the electoral process, enhance transparency, and build trust in the democratic system. The audit should be undertaken in multidisciplinary approach by reputable firms in the different sectors, including voting system, forensic, financial audits, among others. We are equally, as an institute, proposing to amend Article 86, subsection D, to add the words, and conducting a post-election audit of systems, finances, process, and outcomes after the words election materials. This will ensure that after the elections, there's an audit that has been conducted so that all of us are left comfortable. Nobody starts arguing that there are malpractices here and there. And the justification is that all Kenyans, or at least the majority of Kenyans, will be comfortable with the process. I submit to the co-chairs.
Co-chairs, thematic area number 2 will be undertaken by CPA Hannes Muriu on outstanding constitutional matters.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. My name is Ernest Muriu, and I'll discuss taxation matters and cost of living. So, understanding the forces driving price changes and inflation is necessary prerequisite in designing an effective policy response that minimizes and protects the vulnerable from increases in cost of living. Cushioning the population is an important element towards the realization of Article 43 of the Constitution on economic rights and social rights, and also looking at the principles of public finance as espoused in Article 201. To this end, we are proposing an amendment of Article 201B in to add a new paragraph such that the taxation shall not impose an undue burden on the citizenry, including cost of living. So this will ensure that when developing tax policies and developing tax laws, that the impact in terms of cost of living is taken into consideration as a principle of public finance in Kenya. This will include, of course, when reviewing the medium-term strategy paper that was proposed by Treasury. This has proposed to increase VAT from 16% to 18%. And of course, imposing presumptive tax on farmers' produce payments that they derive from organizations such as KTDA and milk companies. So in terms of food and agriculture inflation, Kenya National Bureau of Standards has noted that the inflation rates as measured by the Consumer Price Index was 6.7% in the month of August 2023. This has led to food price inflation, and agriculture has become very expensive. So we need to enhance contribution to the agricultural sector to grow the economy. This will entail giving information on good agricultural practices, access to high quality inputs, and knowledge on the effects of climate change. Also, increasing access to agriculture finance so that farmers are able to access technology, farm inputs, and increase their productivities. Also, we need to establish banks that specialize in financing agriculture, such as giving loans to purchase farming equipment. And then increase exports to the Africa continental trade area. Look for opportunities for Kenyans to be able to market into this territory. Increase training and research in agricultural field. Increase diversification of agricultural production so that we do not have a narrow range of products. Increase specialization in areas based on their inherent advantages. Improve of rural infrastructure, including roads, and increase in markets and transport systems so as to reduce the high cost of getting produce to markets. And then develop and exploit the livestock sector and curb livestock diseases. by increasing infrastructure such as capital dips and improving standards of cleanliness. Cost of fuel has been on the rise, and this is a key inflation driver, has caused the cost of electricity to go up, cost of transportation, and cost of production. And generally, the cost of living has been driven up as a result of this. So a review of the taxes related to fuel needs to be done in line with the proposal that we have done to Article 201, so that the impact of taxation increase is addressed during tax policy setting and enactment of legislation around taxation. And of course, reintroducing refining of fuel or petroleum products within the country, so that probably it will enhance the economic activity in the country and also reduce the cost of the energy in the country. This is also taking cognizance of the fact that as we transition to electric vehicles, there is an immediate need to look at fuel costs. So the strategy for electrifying transport should be looked at a more long-term way than as an immediate policy to be implemented. Then another factor that is driving up cost is depreciation of the Kenya shilling against the dollar and other major global currency. So this needs to be looked at, as Kenya still remains a net importer of products with an ever-present trade deficit. The Kenya shilling has continued to be manufacturing and stimulating the manufacturing sector. Reduction of interest rates on commercial loans and the crowding out effect of the government's borrowing from the local market. And of course, the last